if this is health, this is not the way I want to live, So a friend had said, well, there's a doctor here in Worcester, and you ought to see him. So I made an appointment, and as I went in the door, there was a sign outside, and it said that he was an Ayurvedic physician, and I didn't know what that was, but I said, well, maybe he has the key for my health. So I went in and had my consultation. He didn't do any tests, but he checked my pulse, and he checked it very deeply because he told me things about myself that I was very surprised.
Oh, really? Just by looking at pulse?
Just by feeling the pulse. I'm a nurse, I felt pulses, but he felt it in a different way for a longer period of time. And he said, you tend to be anxious. And he said various things that were true of myself.
And you had not told him anything?
No, this is before I had told him anything, So very, very surprised at that. And so he asked me other questions, but like I said, no blood tests, no lab tests, no physical, outside of the pulse. And he gave me a recommendation to stay away from certain foods. One of them was tomatoes. I remember that because I love tomatoes. I couldn't live without tomatoes. And the other was yogurt, another very favorite food. And I looked at him in total disbelief. I have these problems, and you're telling me to stay away from these foods, And then I said, well, I guess I should try because nothing else has worked. So I went home and I tried, and within 6 weeks, I had all my energy back. I was like a 20-year-old, better than I had been in years and years. I felt like a 20-year-old. I was dancing around and feeling wonderful, and I was just so amazed. I said, I have got to know more about this science. And fortunately, he was the one who Dr. Abbas Kutab had started a course in Boston, and it was going to be that fall, and I was able to sign up for it.
And how long did it take for you to learn?
It was a one-year course. It was really an introduction because it does take a longer time if you want to become a practitioner, you really have to do a lot of in-depth study. But as far as a great beginning, that's what it was for me.
I mean, just for audience, in India there is a parallel medical system, which is Ayurvedic system, and they have, every district place has a general hospital, just like a regular hospital, Western medicine hospital. They also have an Ayurvedic hospital, and they have a doctor who is in charge of that, and they have whole parallel system of medicine that many times people just go visit those hospitals only. Many times they cannot afford to go to the Western medicine type of hospitals, or unless they absolutely need it. So, and of course, in India, some of this is practiced at the local level, where you don't even have to go to doctor because folk people in the villages, they already know, and grandmothers know. So just to put in the perspective. But and now I understand that you took a year course, and then how did you come to think of that you need a journal for this? I mean,
it didn't start just like that. It was just some of us got together and we loved Ayurveda and we wanted to keep in touch. And they said, let's start a newsletter. And so I said, yeah, that's a great idea. Well,
so just to inform people about
yes, to
Ayurveda.
keep, write some articles and whatever. Yeah. And there were 6 of us, but then there were 2 of us, and then there was 1 of us. So, and then another organization started to start a professional organization, and they asked me if I would change it to a journal format. So I did that for 2.5 years. And then that organization kind of did not make it. And so I decided to do an independent journal, and a person that I had come in contact with said, it really should be peer-reviewed. This Ayurveda needs a peer-reviewed journal. And from my nursing perspective, I knew that this was important.
And you were still practicing your nursing?
I haven't been practicing my nursing.
No, at that time?
Oh, at that time, no. Yeah.
So you had given up your nurse practice? Yes. But you were...
I had given it up to have a family, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
so then this was something that you picked up and wanted to promote?
Yes. I just felt it needed as much promotion as could be, and that this seemed to be a natural for me. I don't know why, but it just seemed to be the place I wanted to be.
So the journal now, you are editor-in-chief since the very beginning.
Yes.
And who are the readers of journals?
Oh, practitioners, clinical practitioners across the country.
And these clinical practitioners are Ayurvedic practitioners?
Ayurvedic practitioners. There are yogic people who are yogic practitioners. There are students of Ayurveda. And then many people who have just heard about Ayurveda and they want to learn more. And so those are my subscribers.
And so you say that there are practitioners. Are they allowed to practice in this country Ayurvedic medicine?
That becomes a difficult thing because there's not a licensing per se for Ayurveda. There are some protections for technicians in California, and so many of the schools in California have registered their students as clinical Ayurvedic specialists, which comes under technical assistance. But most people have to have some other degree, like there are physicians who practice Ayurveda, there would be chiropractors, there would be people who have some sort of medical background so that they can be allowed to touch people. You can work in the field of Ayurveda by just teaching. Okay, so many people become teachers and they go out to the public and they teach them about Ayurveda. Others who want to practice a little deeper, in order to touch a person, you have to have a license.
So a chiropractor can.
Chiropractor,
a nurse can practice.
Doctors, yeah.
I see. And you see many of them taking up this?
Yes, yes.
Ayurvedic.
Oh, yes.
So what do you think are the hurdles that might one have to overcome? Is that something that the public can take initiative, or some organizations? I mean, I understand there is a national organization on Ayurvedic medicine.
There is.
And can they initiate something? You know, what exactly are the problems, and who are the major players that can make some difference?
Certainly the National Ayurvedic Medical Association is very important to us all because it's starting to bring people together. They have conferences, they're working on licensing, they're working on issues such as herbal standards. So all those things are very, very important. And sometimes people may be familiar with saying Ayurveda in the headlines because there have been studies that showed that some of the medications that were coming from being presented had heavy metals in them, and so that was a drawback. That really kind of set a lot of people back on Ayurveda. As they investigated it, they found it may not be quite such a problem, but it did hurt Ayurveda to have this. But it's important to be studied. We need to know how do these metals affect. Where did they come into play? And Ayurveda